This is the entrance to the Prague Barrandov movie studio. Behind it is a vast area filled with all the facilities needed for movie production. Tucked away on an outer edge of the lot is the Kratky Film Animation Studio. One half of the building was occupied by the Brothers in Tricot cartoon animation studio where Zdenka and I worked. The other half, named for the great puppet film master Jerzy Tunka, was the much larger stop-motion puppet film studio. It's all deserted in 2012, a victim of amateur capitalism. But in 1991, just a couple of years after the Czech Velvet Revolution overthrowing communism, the studio was still in full swing. The surviving puppet film master was Břetislav Pojar, who was then doing a project with the National Film Board in Canada. He asked me to walk with him through the studio with my video camera to make a few shots to show his Canadian colleagues what the Prague puppet film studios looked like. I was the only one at the time who had a video camera with the USA Canadian standard. The result, which you're now seeing, as limited as it is, may well be the only remaining document of the Prague Barrandov puppet film studio in full production. An unplanned, impromptu, brief walkthrough in 1991, entirely authentic. Walking through the long hallways and glimpsing the various crafts with our unannounced visit, we saw some of our talented colleagues at work, creating the puppets and even giving one of them a haircut. High-level skill and precision were required to make the jointed metal armature skeletons and miniature body parts. Puppet animation depended on the figures being able to be moved and held firmly in position in tiny increments. Everyone had to know how their work would be combined with the work of others. The results on film were a complex blend of many crafts. Over the years, hundreds of highly skilled craftsmen and artisans worked here. Everyone knew his or her job, and the directors and production managers made sure it all worked together. Arms, legs, heads, and other body parts, marvelously detailed little costumes, tiny precise metal props and set pieces, model railroad cars, vehicles, machines. Trees, buildings, and I suppose even a random coffee mug were all part of a master scenario. Mainly created within this studio, but sometimes made from toys, mechanical parts, and bits of material found in junk shops. In those days, the film titles were skillfully hand-lettered. Beautiful work. Today, stop-motion puppet films can't match the smoothness or near reality of CGI, but yet they had a special storybook quality and physical reality that still makes them special. The technique should be preserved. Puppetry is an ancient and noble art. The hands and faces were formed of latex, and the studio had a great store of hand forms with latex molded over flexible metal fingers. Puppetry is a long-time heritage of the Czech people, going back to the Middle Ages and even to prehistory. I once read that the oldest articulated human figure puppet ever found was discovered on present-day Czech territory. The actual shooting of stop-motion puppet scenes was the high-risk climax of the entire process. With today's digital production, errors can be easily corrected, but here, shooting real puppets on real sets was a real risk. Mistakes were often not discovered until days later after the film was developed. It would mean that the entire scene must be completely reshot. And the details of the action were mainly just in the memory of the cameraman. Reshoots were always painful. It fascinated me to look in on this studio, located in the same building as the cartoon animation section where I was working. I often wished I could get an assignment to do a puppet film. But aside from the paper cutout film Drummer Hoff for Western Woods, the opportunity never surfaced for me. It's admirable how these people expanded on, but basically maintained the old technology of George Méliès, but with imagination and skill made the most out of the old physical techniques. Craftsmanship and imagination were all they had to work with. The care and feel to create convincing action by hand was formidable. Once a puppet was moved, even a bit, there was no going back. If you found you'd lost your place in the arc of motion or the exact increment of movement, you had to do the whole scene over again. I'll show you in some snapshots I made some years ago, including a final setup from this very film that you see here in actual shooting in 1991. Only this chance video of a scene being shot and the following still shots I made over the years remain from the work of this magnificent studio. You see in this crude document the results of the meticulously detailed handwork coming out of the seemingly chaotic studio was often magnificent. Those hallways and workshops are all empty now. All that's left are cobwebs.